Welcome to the Darkstream. I'm VoxDay, voxday.blogspot.com, Infogalactic News, and of course, Castelia House. Sorry I didn't ran out of time last night to do it. We're working on wrapping up the edits for the Corroding Empire. And so I was planning to talk about some other stuff, but in light of the blocked travel ban, I think that we probably need to at least address that, and then we'll get into some of the other stuff before. Now, in answer to your question, when can you read The Corroding Empire? It's coming out on March 20th. So, anyhow, a couple interesting things. First of all, the result in Holland was good. It wasn't great, but it was good. You know, they were predicting the pre-election polls were actually predicting anything from the Party of Freedom winning either 16 or 13 or 16 seats, and they ended up winning at least 19. By no stretch of the imagination is that a bad result. Now, some people are saying, "Well, come on, they were supposed to be the largest party and all that sort of thing." Well, those early polls are fundamentally meaningless, especially in a parliamentary system as complex as Holland's. As it was, the leading party lost 10 seats. That's a pretty big move, and so it's interesting to see that people are looking at that going, "Oh, it's terrible, it's disappointing." It's not. It's another step forward for nationalism. Not only, oh, awesome, thanks for supporting us. It's not only an important step forward for for the nationalists in Holland, because in addition to Wilders' party now being tied for the second largest in Parliament, they have pushed the largest party further to the nationalist right, and so that's a huge step forward. Now granted, I don't think any nationalist takes Rutte, or whatever his name is, very seriously when he's suddenly starting to talk tough about Moroccans and immigrants and so forth. But the reality is that if he doesn't deliver, his party is going to be further weakened, and Wilders' party is going, and the nationalists are going to continue to rise. There are a lot of nationalists already voting for that center-right party that is in power, and so look, you guys, you need to stop trying to comment about things that I'm not talking about, or I'll block you. Okay? It's that simple. It's distracting, and now I can certainly turn the comments off, but this is not your show, so please don't do that. We will talk about Trump soon, but wait until we get there. Anyhow, so it's a good result. It's the same thing in France. Le Pen may or may not win. She's not expected to win, but she's expected to make a very strong showing. The National Front is expected to take a big step forward. I have no idea if the Dutch election was rigged. Nothing would surprise me any longer, but it doesn't, here's the thing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because the more that they try to push the pressure down, the more they try to keep a lid on it, the more that the pressure is going to grow, and the more violently it is going to explode off. And now let's go back now to the Trump travel ban. Some people are very angry about this. Some people are very disappointed about this. Some people are actually feeling demoralized about this. Remember what that comment that somebody made. I already put this up on the blog. What did Trump do whose grave did he go and lay a wreath on? Presidents don't do things like that for no reason. They do that for symbolic reasons. They are acting in order to send a signal. Okay, he laid a wreath on Andrew Jackson's grave. Andrew Jackson is very famous for having taken on the Supreme Court, for having taken on the Bank of the United States. He's very famous for nullification. And so what Trump is signaling, what the God Emperor is signaling, is that he is not going to respect the judicial process. What he's doing now is essentially what the military calls recon by fire. He is going to keep. He's going to put these. He's going to keep doing these different executive orders and that sort of thing, because what he is forcing the opposition to do is to react to it. Now, if they're and what they're doing is what he's doing by doing this is he's undermining their position. The left is so out of control that anything they do and anything he does, they are going to react to it. They are going to attempt to block it. And so the more of the president's legitimate functions that they block, the more they illegitimize their own position, and the more they create the opportunity for the God Emperor to neutralize them. Now, how he's going to do that, I don't know. There is no chance, in my opinion, there is no chance that Donald Trump is relying upon the Supreme Court. That's conservative thinking. That's conservative thinking. What he has to do in order to maintain and secure his popular support is he has to make sure that he gets the other side completely and fully on record, so that when he acts to neutralize them, which could be anything from firing them all, from ignoring them all, from droning them all, from arresting them all and sending them all to Guantanamo, we have no idea. We have absolutely no idea what he's going to do. But what he's doing now, and remember, he's a smart, strategic thinker. It's very important to remember that before he even announced for president, he had already trademarked the phrase, "Make America Great Again." He knew he was going to need a slogan if he was going to run. He knew he was going to need an effective slogan, and he wanted to make sure that he controlled it. So he not only planned for it, but he actually came up with an incredibly effective one. All right? That is not somebody who is reacting to events. That is not somebody who is even a little bit surprised by what those judges did. He may have been a little bit surprised, I think. I got the impression, I could be wrong, I got the impression he was a little bit surprised by the vehemence of the reaction, by the insane lunatic, foam-flecked, rabid reaction to what was, after all, a very fairly trivial move. He's basically doing what Obama had already done. So I think he was taken aback by that. But there's absolutely no indication that he is the least bit surprised by this. If I'm not surprised by it, do you really think that Steve Bannon's surprised by it? Do you really think that the God Emperor is surprised by it? I don't think so. We know from the way he handled the tax situation with Rachel Maddow that they are on top of these things tactically. But that doesn't mean that they are thinking or planning tactically. They are strategic thinkers. They have a plan in mind. They are playing it out. And so, I'm not saying, I think it's exaggerating to say that, they're engaged in 4D underwater chess while everyone else is playing checkers. That's not necessarily the case. But to think that they are surprised by the obvious is, I think, a remarkably foolish way to go. I don't think that Donald Trump trusts the courts one little bit. I know I don't, and my experience with them is vastly, vastly more limited than Donald Trump's. And so, and he knows if he's going to fix the situation, he's not going to be able to do it through the courts. He's not going to be able to do it through the usual games that conservatives play, which, oh, we're going to pass a law, we're all going to vote, we're going to pass a law, and then lo and behold, oh no, one gay judge in California overturned our state referendum that passed easily. I mean, Trump knows these things. I know these things. You know these things. So why are we even talking about things like the Supreme Court and whatnot? They're irrelevant now. They're totally irrelevant. So now how the specific way that the courts are going to be bypassed, I don't know. No, it's not because what he's doing is wrong. I mean, there's absolutely no question whatsoever that Donald Trump has the legitimate constitutional authority to enact a travel ban. He could, if he wanted to, simply declare war on all 5 or 6 of those countries and do exactly the same thing. He can, if he wants to, declare every single one of those judges enemies of the state and have them droned. He can do that too. He can strip all of them of their citizenship by executive order and have them deported or sent to Guantanamo Bay. He can do all of those things. There is no question he can do all of those things because of the legal precedent. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. There are plenty of, as long as there's legal precedent, and the other thing that people need to keep in mind, people keep issuing all these dark threats. Oh, he'll be this, he'll be that, whatever. Okay, the military is on his side. People just seem to assume that things are going to continue as they are one way or the other, and they even fantasize that, oh, if it gets too far away from it is. No, okay, this guy's just stupid. Why do conservatives view courts as legitimate? Because conservatism is fundamentally a posture. It's fundamentally an attitude. It's not really a true ideology with actual principles. And so conservatives always emotionally prefer order. And so the order tends to be on the side of the courts. They want to, conservatives very much want everything to follow an orderly process, and the courts are part of that. So conservatives are always more concerned about form than they are about substance. Or I shouldn't say always. They are usually more concerned about form than they are about substance. And so they would rather do the wrong thing following proper procedure than do the right thing and break the rules. So anyhow, I think that this is going to be very interesting because remember, Trump has also set up a situation where he is going to he's basically put all the federal agencies on notice that if they can't justify their budgets or even their existence, he will use the information that they've given him to shut them down. So, when people talk about all this, these dire threats about the deep state and CIA and NSA, well, with the stroke of a pen, Trump can shut them down, throw them all out of work, and say, hey, you want to go to work for Soros? Well, you're going to have to go to work for him directly, and you're going to do so without all your federal immunity. Now, is he going to do that? I have no idea. I have no information about any of this stuff. I'm just an observer like the rest of you. But I am an observer who tends to pay a little bit more attention, maybe, than most. On that note, I should actually mention this. I have a new book out. I don't know if you guys were aware of that, but I just got it today. I'm actually very excited about this one. It's a collection of, I guess, 5 years of my columns at WorldNet Daily. That's me a few years ago. Had a bit more hair. It's pretty big. It's on Kindle too. It's called Collected. It's the Collected Columns, Volume 1, Innocence and Intellect, 2001 to 2005. And what's really interesting about this, I think, first of all, it's really nice to see it in print. You know, these columns have been on the internet and stuff. You can find them whenever, but first of all, it's good to have it in print, just because you know it's going to. Anything that's on the internet can be erased and deleted. But no, there's no audiobook yet. As yet, it's not on the list of priorities at this point in time. We're way behind on those. But the reason that these things are important is that it basically traces current events for those 5 years, starting with the 9/11. You know, I first started writing political columns after 9/11. I was writing a technology column for WorldNet Daily. There's still some. We did include the technology columns in here, but what's kind of fascinating about it is, first of all, you know, I haven't seen these things, some of these columns, for 15 years, and so it's been very interesting to go through and see not just what was going on at the time, but also kind of see how my thinking has changed over the years. I mean, I'm pretty happy with a lot of the stuff that was written. It's interesting to see that I've actually been pretty consistent for the most part. But it's also interesting to see where things have changed. But where it's most useful, though, is that this is basically history in action. If you read this, then you will get a minor education in American history over the last 15 years. Was I skeptical of 9/11? No, not particularly. These are unedited in the sense that we cleaned up, you know, some typos and stuff, but otherwise it hasn't been changed. And what it even has a couple bonus things in it. A lot of people don't realize that I wrote my. I think the retail is $34.99. It's about 700, 800 pages. Let's see. I don't even know. Let me see here. It's like 750 pages. So, you know, pretty good per page value compared to most books. But there's also 2 appendices in here. And what they are is something that I wrote in 1995 for the St. Paul Pioneer Press on the Unabomber. I was their game review columnist, but when the Unabomber released his manifesto, the opinion page editor couldn't find anyone to make heads or tails out of it. And so he told my editor at the time, hey, give it to that kid with the mohawk. He seems to understand it. You know, maybe he can make some sense of it. So they were completely appalled when I read the manifesto and said, you know, actually this kind of makes sense. But they published the piece without changing any of it, so that was pretty funny. The other thing it has is, I don't even have a date on this because I don't know when it was, except for the fact that I know that I was probably around 20 years old. There's not an index, but there is a table of contents with all the column titles and whatnot. But with an index, it was just going to be way too big. But what's interesting is that it was a long letter to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, which they actually ran as a counterpoint on their editorial page. It was called "Empowering the People Means Allowing Them to Carry Guns." And so it was an anti-gun control article. And so those are, it's just something I happened to save both of those as a, I had them in print, so I thought, hey, why don't we just include them with the collected columns? And so that worked out pretty well. And I think what we're going to do, and they don't come out evenly because of the years. So what we're going to do with one of the volumes, I think volume 3, is we're including a lot of my full interviews with everyone from John Julius Norwich to Jonah Goldberg to Umberto Eco. In fact, I've even got the interview that you've seen with Umberto Eco that you've seen on my site. Yes, this is the first volume. This is I think even does it say that? Oh, it says on the back, the Collected Columns, Volume 1, and so, but I've actually got a video of much longer interviews with Dr. Eco, and so hopefully I'm going to get the whole thing transcribed, and we'll put the whole interview on there, which will be very cool because I went and had it filmed just because I always had the sense that I was going to become an intellectual figure of some note at some point in time. And since obviously Umberto Eco is one of the leading intellectual figures of note in the world, I think they had him ranked like the number 3 public intellectual in the world at one point. I thought, hey, this is kind of historic. So we filmed it, and I've got the videos and the films, and so we're going to get that transcribed. I would think there probably is a biography of Eco, but I only think it's in Italian. I don't think there's an English one yet. If you notice right there, that whole row, that's my Umberto Eco row. So I'm reading Numero Zero in Italiano right now, which is one of the cool things about having learned Italian, is I get to read Eco in the original. The funny thing is, Italians are always super impressed by that because che difficile, like he's very, very difficult. Like, but I read better than I speak, so What's interesting though is that it actually see, we've got the this row is the Castelia House row, and that row is the Umberto Eco row. So you can see where we rank compared to Umberto. No, I read Italian much slower than I read English. And I have a dictionary on the tablet so that if I run into a word, I can immediately look it up on the dictionary. I probably have to do that maybe 5 to 10 times a page, reading Eco. Of course, the frustrating thing with reading Eco is that the dictionary sometimes doesn't help you, because sometimes he just invents words. There was one word that he used a long time ago. I use it as an example, celulorismo, and I looked it up and I talked to everyone I knew, and nobody had any idea what it meant. And it wasn't until I ran into I happened to read something about Umberto Bossi, the Northern League politician, and his favorite phrase, cielo duro, that I suddenly realized what Eco meant by that. So I felt really good about having translated that phrase myself. There's something that all the native Italian speakers couldn't figure out. So that was kind of fun. But anyhow, there's another book I want to draw your attention to because it just came out. In fact, these both just arrived today. So I'll get into that later. It's going to take a little while. But anyhow, this is a book that we're very, very happy to have published. It is Cleo and Me, and it's the intellectual autobiography of the great military historian Martin van Creveld. The thing that's fascinating about this for me is that it's very rare that we get the chance to see into the thought processes of a genuine genius. I mean, I'm very, very intelligent. I'm very smart. But I'm not a genius. I certainly have not demonstrated any genius as of yet. Martin van Creveld, on the other hand, he has demonstrated that. Jerry Pournelle said of him that Martin van Creveld is a necessary addendum to Clausewitz. Now, if you are a necessary addendum to one of the two greatest military minds in history, that is genius level accomplishment. I mean, yes, maybe it's not up there with Newton, but it's at least at the minor genius level. And so what's really interesting about this is you read it, and the thing is, I know Martin. We've had lunch, we've gotten together. He's a wonderful, warm, charming man. He has a hobby, and he's actually making something for my wife. That's just the kind of guy he is. He's incredibly warm. He's very charming. I mean, and in this book, it's funny. You can see his charm through it. His warmth and his charm comes through. But what's fascinating for me is you also get this sense. It's not direct. There's nothing here. This is just an account of somebody talking about how his life, like he calls it, an intellectual autobiography. So he's talking about his life, how he started doing some of his projects and why he did them, and what it was like, and what his philosophy was as a professor and as a teacher and so forth. But you get this sense, sort of overshadowing the whole thing, of this just vast glacial intelligence, this coldly calculating mind that does not, it doesn't even seem to fit with the personality. But that's what I was really fascinated about when I read this and when I edited it, was because it was one of the few times that I felt that I could actually sense the genius itself as opposed to its consequences. I mean, I've read, The Transformation of War. I've read Technology in War. They're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. But they're consequences. It's not you're not seeing the genius itself, you are seeing what the genius does. You're seeing the evidence that the genius was there. But to actually get the chance to and now I don't know if everyone will pick that up. I can't say. But for me, that was what I particularly enjoyed about it. I mean, I don't, yes, obviously, we would not publish a book if we didn't think well of it. But there are certain books that we publish that are not my own, that I'm particularly close to or proud of for one reason or another. Like The Missionaries by Owen Stanley. That's my favorite book that we've published, far and away. But Cleo and Me by Martin van Creveld, it's probably the second most fascinating biography or autobiography that I've ever read. Number one in my book is still Peter the Great, which the sort of famous biography of Peter the Great. I don't know why I got hooked on that one, but I actually read it twice. I think I read it the first time when I was 15, and we were staying at a ranch in Denver. Cleo is the muse of history. So, as a historian, like he describes this as an account of his romance with the muse of history. And the picture, by the way, is a famous painting of Apollo and the Muses. We just chose. This is actually Cleo, and so and then Martin's on the back. But I thought that it was just such a wonderfully poetic way to describe his passion and his relationship with history. And it's kind of funny because you read it and you learn how he thinks, and then suddenly you find yourself wanting to read some of his history books or even theses that you had no interest in before. Like, I need to get my hands on his thesis on Italian fascism. It was actually his doctoral thesis, and now I really want to read it. So anyhow, so those are the two books that have. It would be actually, that's a good idea, but he's so busy writing his fiction. So, but yeah, and we've actually got Martin van Creveld's first novel that's going to be coming out this year. We're working on it right now, and it's different. Let's put it that way. It's definitely different. Anyhow, that's all I've got tonight. I need to go because I need to finish up the final edits on The Corroding Empire. If you haven't pre-ordered that yet, definitely do it, because it's probably the most outrageous book being published in science fiction this year or for the past few years, for reasons that you can probably figure out. SJW always doubled down. I've had to push it back about a month just because of all this other stuff. It will be coming out this year. It will be coming out probably before the summer. They're certainly supplying us plenty of material. So no question about that. Anyhow, so thanks to you who are on the Burn Unit supporting InfoGalactic. It's a huge help. Thanks to those of you who keep supporting Castelia House, and I hope if you're so inclined, check out our two new books, Innocence and Intellect 2001 to 2005 by me, and Cleo and Me by Martin van Creveld. Have a good evening.